there's also been some suggestions that Saudi Arabia could be brought into this group, and that would have a meaningful impact because then you've got a currency story that could go somewhere. They need to buy oil. At the moment, that's priced in dollars. But if you could find a way of pricing that in other currencies, that would have a significant impact.
Yeah, also on the subject this week is the topic of expansion of the BRICS, and Saudi is sort of bubbling in the background. I think that would be a big market mover, actually, if Saudi were to enter the kind of BRICS this week. And as you say, the subject of denominating oil in a currency other than dollars is a big topic. But remember as well, in Europe, they've tried to kind of switch pricing into euros, and that's taken about a decade and hasn't got very far at all. So,
but if Saudi Arabia wants to do it, that would be a different narrative, wouldn't it? Yeah,
but that would be sort of within the region, within the BRICS region. And I think with the report that we put out last week, the evidence so far is just it takes time.
Right.
It's very kind of gradual. It won't be kind of sudden if there is a shift.
OK, so then let's get to the other aspects. And that's going to be China, for example, really wanting to go in and expand BRICS, as we were just talking about. But they really want to use it as a platform in some ways to challenge the West. But the economy is super dicey. And I'm wondering how you see that conversation evolve.
Yeah, I think the movement towards sort of a BRICS currency and greater unification probably is going to come from a position of kind of strength. So now, it's rather kind of difficult time given kind of the status of their kind of local economies. But, what we have seen with China, how they've tried to increase the use of renminbi is really through swap lines, encouraging more people to use the renminbi in trade. And there has been strong evidence of that over the last sort of 10 years or so. They've now got swap lines with over 40 countries around the world. And the use of China in the renminbi in trade is slowly picking up, but it's very gradual indeed.
Alex brings up China, so I'm going to go there and talk a little bit about what is happening with the economy and the relationship to Europe. PMI data out later on this week. Maybe we're going to start to see some of that showing up in the German data, the weakness we're seeing in China into the German data. When do we start seeing, and to what extent have we already seen, the China weakness being reflected in the value of the euro?
Yeah, I think it's already partly in the euro with the whole manufacturing story. We've seen, obviously, weak PMIs in Europe for like 3 or 4 months, and I think that's probably a function of what's going on in China. And is there going to be reflation in China? Is there enough of kind of stimulus to get us there? And I think looking at those PMIs in Europe for a long time, I think that's partly in the price of the euro already. I mean, I'm more concerned about some independent weakness in the renminbi, and I think Chinese authorities are trying to resist a sell China mentality, and that's why they're putting up such a strong defence at these levels at around 7.35 in dollar renminbi.
But Chris, is it really strong? I mean, I feel like they keep doing it and it keeps not really working. Like, what else are they going to have to do?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the inherent challenge out there, today you're reporting that sort of liquidity is tightening and there's a bit of a short squeeze in the Chinese renminbi at the moment. But if they're cutting rates at the same time, those policies don't quite add up. So I think, as you suggest, that this is going to turn around quickly. If they are using monetary policy to kind of stimulate the economy, I think the renminbi will remain weak. And you've been talking about flat markets for a while, and in foreign exchange markets, the carry trade has dominated over probably the last kind of 5-6 months or so, and the renminbi is being used as a popular funding currency. So that doesn't seem like it's going to change in a hurry.
A lot of people are excited about Jerome Powell on Friday, Jackson Hole. I'm actually quite excited about Christine Lagarde and what she has to say. It strikes me, actually, the data that are coming out of Europe at the moment are posing real questions about the longevity of the current expansion and whether or not actually we're starting to roll over fairly quickly. Does Lagarde, how close do you think we are to Lagarde pivoting and saying, actually, we need to take a step back here? Data dependent, yes, but the risks are rising.
Yeah, I've heard what you said in early kind of interviews with your kind of guests, and it does feel as though it's borderline. But I think, where the similarities do exist with the US is that they really need to see inflation kind of turn the corner and have the confidence in that. And perhaps it still feels a little too early to make that adjustment. Sure, Fed Powell has got much stronger support to be careful about inflation expectations over the longer term. But I think the ECB would be reluctant to very quickly turn around their views on inflation expectations and soften their stance. Actually, speaking to customers, we're bullish on Eurodollar, but one of the arguments against us is that actually the Eurozone story will crumble before those differentials narrow with the States, and perhaps that's what's happening at the moment with Eurodollar.